Hey everyone, how's it going? So it's kind of a miserable Sunday here. Um, like I said, I was supposed to go out on a road trip and never got to it. Just never happened. So I got my trailer here, and I had taken the drums off, and now I showed you about electric brakes, the electromagnets and stuff, how they work. Um, but what I got to do here is repacking the bearings, and I took my grease gun because my grease gun had a red grease in it. It was almost empty, and I went to the parts store and I actually found this. So I bought two of these tubes of boat trailer wheel bearing grease. So I'm going to use that because the red stuff that I had in there, it was a Lucas brand. Um, I wasn't 100% positive what it was. It was almost empty, and I was like, you know what? I may as well just replace this. I bought two of those tubes, and I figured I'm just going to start from fresh. It's kind of a messy job. I'm going to wear gloves when I do it. But yeah, so let's start doing this. What I'm going to do first is put on a set of gloves. These are Microflex Diamond Grip gloves. These are the ones I bought a bunch of these a while back, and as you know, I don't use gloves all that often, so they last me a long time. Oh, that one's already ripped out of the bag. So let's get another one, or out of the box, I should say. So what you got to do is you got to get all the old grease off. So when I changed the grease tube in my grease gun, basically I cleaned everything out with old rags, and got the new cartridge in there, and I cycled it through several times, and I got the old grease out and the new grease in. Let me just show you. Kind of clean it up a little bit. But the new grease is blue in color. The old grease is red. So you can kind of see where it came out of the nozzle there and eventually turned to blue. So I wanted to make sure it came out full blue. So what we're going to do here is, let me get you set up so you can actually see me. So what we're going to do here is we're going to clean off this old grease that's on here. Nothing fancy, just using old rags. And usually when I use a rag, what I will usually do is I will keep it, unless I get it really nasty. I don't wash my rags, I get rid of them. I just buy these rags at Harbor Freight. But I usually will keep the old rags that might be a little bit oily or whatever for when I'm doing something this nasty that's just dealing with old nasty grease. Now I'm not quite sure when you grease this up where the grease actually comes out of. So what I want to do is I'm going to hook my grease gun to it, and I want to see where it actually comes out of. Oh, wait a minute. Is that some kind of a different size fitting? Shouldn't be. There we go. Nope, I got an air pocket in my grease gun. I don't know if you can see that. You probably can't. But basically, I wound up hitting an air pocket, but it did start to push some out. I'm going to have to get that air pocket out of there. But it did start to push some out, and if you look down there, you see it starting to push through. There was a hole there. I didn't notice that. So let me get, I want to get that residual stuff off of there, clean this up. I want to get the air completely purged out of my grease gun, and then I'm going to force the blue grease through because I want to get rid of whatever grease is in that that vein that runs through there. So let's do that, and then we're going to start cleaning bearings and stuff. And this is all going to be very simple at home with no special chemicals or anything like that. All right, so I actually have this little Bluetooth trigger because I'm going to have my hands greasy. So I got the grease out of this, or the air out of this. So now let's hook this back up. And all I'm doing is pushing through, and see if you can see that little poop that's coming through there. See the poop getting bigger? So all I want to do is get the nastiness out. And there you see some of the blue is coming through. Hey, that rhymed. Okay, yeah, I got the blue coming through now. Okay, so I'm good with that. So we're going to leave that alone for right now. Just want to try to keep my mess down to a minimum. I hope you saw that, but I did have the blue coming through there. All right. I know I realize I may have blocked the camera there, but the blue is coming through, so that's good. So now let's go on and let's start cleaning up some bearings and that and getting ready to do what we need to do. Oh, hey, actually, first, let's do this. So we got the old drum here that I'm going to pick up as soon as I can actually grab it. Now, what's the easiest way to get that out? That old bearing and seal. Take your nut. Screw your nut on there. And then you use it to catch the bearing. Basically, you're going to stick the drum back over it, and it's going to be like a stopper for the bearing. At least I hope it is. Maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe it's going to fight me the whole way. And maybe now I need new seals. Yep, I ruined the seal. Dang it, not what I wanted to do. So now I'm going to have to try to find new seals. Darn it. See that? That's what happens. Unfortunately. Okay, so we want to knock the bearing and seal out. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a punch, stick it down there at an angle, so hopefully I catch the edge of the bearing and it helps push that seal out. Tell you what, that thing is in there. It was in there. Took the race out with it. Dang. Okay, wasn't expecting that. All right. So hopefully this will all go back together okay. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing right. All right, well, what we're going to do first is I'm going to put that to the side for right now. All of this gook on the inside, all the old bearing grease, clean out. All I do is just dig my hand in there and get as much of this out first by hand. Yeah, this bearing grease is pretty nasty. So that's all I really want to do is just do that to get the majority of it out by hand. And then I'll go in with rags and start wiping out the rest. This one was already pretty munged up. I should have more rags in the garage somewhere. So my main goal is to get as much of the nastiness out as possible. Because like I said in the other video, greases will mix and they will liquefy when hot. So right now, my main goal is to get as much of this out as possible. You can take brake clean if you want and really get in there and get all this out. It's not necessary to go that crazy. All right, so let's see. Hopefully this race goes in without an issue. And it physically looks okay. So hopefully you understand what I'm doing here. I'm just tapping in the race. So one tool I don't have here is a race installer seal driver. There's actually a ledge in here right where the race sits, and it's flush with that, but I think it has to go a hair below that. So you also got to be careful when you're hitting a race like this not to use excessive force, because you use excessive force you can actually distort the bearing surface. You distort the bearing surface and guess what, you got yourself a big problem. All right, so now what I got to do is, let me wipe. Look at how nasty that is. Clean this thing up as much as possible. Because what I'm going to have to do is I got to get a new seal. Problem is, I'm going to have to see if I can't read a number on here somewhere. So let me see what I can come up with. Because then I'm going to have to go... I mean, the seal itself is actually pretty dried up. See, it's actually cracking right there. So maybe it's a good thing that this happened. I don't have a failure while I'm on the road. All right, let me see what I can come up with, and we're going to go from there. So I went out and I come to find we have a local Northern hydraulics store. So I went there. Amazingly enough, they had the right seals in stock. Now these are slightly different than the ones that came out, but they do fit inside here like they're supposed to. And then also, when you're getting new seals for something like this, and you don't know what you have, and you have to kind of like measure and stuff like that, always make sure that the inner part of the seal fits the hub in here like it's supposed to. Make sure it fits and it's where the seal is supposed to ride in here. So everything does, so everything's fine, so I'm happy with that. So now what we're going to do is we are going to clean the bearings out and make sure that everything's good there. And then I'm going to show you how to pack them by hand. So I'm going to just finish cleaning this off as much as I can, get out whatever nastiness. Oh, look at that. It's actually a piece of the old seal stuck in the backside of the bearing. So right there that tells you the seals themselves, they're ancient and they're no good. Now something interesting I want to show you here once I get this cleaned off a bit. All right. Kind of clean. Get this clean. Sounds like my neighbors have a bunch of people over today. But when you're dealing with a bearing like this, if you see the cage, it's a little distorted right here. See that? See, it kind of flattens out or whatever. That doesn't really matter. It's not going to affect much of anything. Oh yeah, here we go. That's probably where I hit it with the hammer, right there. But once this is in place, the cage is only here to hold the actual rollers in place. It's not going to affect anything. It's not going to hurt anything. See that? Once this thing is in place, it'll be fine. I'm not concerned about that. I might tap it and straighten it out a little bit, but that's about it. It's not going to really affect much of anything. What I'm going to do is inspect all the rollers, make sure all the rollers are okay, which I think they are. I think they're fine. Just want to push it down a little bit. Push the cage in a little bit. So that should be fine. I'm going to get a little screwdriver in there and just dig that edge up just slightly. All right, let me finish wiping these down, and then I'm going to show you what we're going to do. All right, so now what we're going to do is pack these bearings. And I hope I'm doing this so you can see where I'm at. Where am I? Right here. Just trying to center myself on the camera while I'm looking at it, because I can't see myself right now. So what I'm going to do is, all I'm going to do is take the grease from my grease gun here, and I'm going to put a bunch in my hand. Just like that. Now I'm going to take the bearing, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to pack it by hand. And what I'm doing is I'm hitting the edge of the grease with the big, large open end of the bearing. And as I'm doing that, you can see it's pushing the old grease out. I apologize for the motorcycles out there. There's nothing I can do about it. But there, you see it's pushing the old grease out. Now this is where I'm going to waste a whole bunch of grease. But what are you going to do? And I'm just hitting the very edge of it to push that old grease through. They make bearing packers. I don't have one. Yes, they do make your life easier. And the reason for this old cardboard is so I have a place to put this old nasty grease that comes out of here. I hope I'm staying in the video. Doing this. Luna, shut up. Luna sees a leaf and she goes bananas. So I'm going to keep doing that. I'm going to get all the old grease out of this thing. But this is, like I said, this is where I waste a ton of grease. If I had a bearing packer, it would probably make my life a little bit easier, but I don't have one. And I have no chemicals, like a wash tank or anything like that, to clean the old bearings to help get the junk out of them. If I did, that would make my life a little bit easier. Luna! Shush! Alright, hang on a second, guys. Yeah, can you take her inside, please? Thank you. All right. All I'm doing is pushing the old grease through until I get good blue grease coming through. And while I'm doing this too, I rotate the bearing to make sure I'm hitting all the rollers. And yes, this is messy, but what are you going to do? This is what they call hand packing bearings. If I knew what the grease was, or if these were clean bearings, then obviously I wouldn't be wasting this much grease, but like I said, I don't really have much of a choice. See, and as you can see through there, you can see the blue grease is coming through. So we just keep wiping this down till we get all the old nasty grease out and go from there. All right, I'm going to keep doing this until I get all the old nasty grease out, and then I'll show you what happened or how it comes out. So what I was going to do is just pack this bearing to get all the nasty gook out, and just pack it and keep packing it through. Well, I was doing that, and I just kept on getting junk out of it. So, since I don't have any parts cleaner, the closest gas station to me is about 12 minutes away. The closest, like Lowe's Home Improvement is the closest, like box store where I could get mineral spirits, aka parts washer cleaner. It's the same stuff, just so you know. The parts washer chemical is mineral spirits, which is paint thinner. So, the closest one of those is 25 minutes away. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to get gasoline, put it in a container, and clean them with gasoline. If you're going to do this, you got to be extremely careful. Make sure there's no spark source around you or anything like that, because obviously it's gasoline, highly flammable. But it's an excellent cleaning agent for getting grease and stuff out of like a bearing or whatever. So, you know, and I'm in a well-ventilated area. I'm outside. Don't do this inside a garage, whatever you do. I prefer it if you didn't do it, but I'm just telling you, like, I'm going to do it right now, and I am a firm believer in do as I say, not as I do, because I'm a dad, you know, and a pop-up. So, anyway, let me do that. Okay, truck. Anyway, so let me do that. Let me get this stuff ready, and I'm going to clean it. Like I said, I did pack that bearing quite a bit, but I kept on getting that nasty old grease out of it. So I'm like, you know what? Enough is enough. I'm just going to do this the other way. So I went inside also, and I grabbed one of Mrs. Wrenching's toothbrushes. So I'll make sure it's nice and clean when I'm done and put it back for her so she can use it again. Anyway, so yeah, let's do this. So here I have my drain pan that I usually use for engine oil. I'm going to take my gas container. I just went and I got gas. I broke the tip of this spout off the last time I used it. These new spouts, horrible. Absolutely terrible. Garbage. I tell you, they say it's to help the environment because you get less spillage, and I guess you get less chance of getting vapors in the air or something. I don't know. But I tell you what, you wind up spilling more with those spouts that come with it. You wind up spilling more than anything. So it's just like I don't see how it's even worth it. But I wound up snapping the tip of it off. No big deal. Now, when I go to get rid of this stuff, make sure you put it in an improved container or something. I actually have another 5-gallon container, and I'm going to use that to put the old nasty gas into, because that 5-gallon container is what I usually put like old oil and stuff into when I bring it to the shop to recycle it. So let me just get that bearing. I'm going to drop that in there. I'm going to throw gloves on real quick. I'm yelling over at the camera, but I have a microphone on. So I apologize for that. I know you can hear a leaf blower in the background. Nothing I can do about that. Like I said, I'm working outside. So, actually what I'm going to do, here's the cotter pin. I'm going to reuse the cotter pin. Here's the bearing. And what did I do with the other bearing? There it is. I got the other bearing here too. What I'm going to do is I'm going to wipe this all down. I got new caps too. When I went to Northern Tools, they had caps. So let me... just wipe this all down. Nice. Wipe down the washer. Because you may as well get off as much as you can. Because this way you're not fighting with it in the container. Like I said, mineral spirits, that's what parts washers use for their cleaning agent, is mineral spirits. So of course, I don't have like a pump or anything like that to flow this stuff. So put it in there. Take Mrs. Wrenching's toothbrush. I'm sure she won't mind. Basically, I'm just going to roll the bearing in there. Take the toothbrush, clean out as much as I can. Of course, lately my days have not been going as planned. So everything's taking me 10 times as long. So I don't even know if I'm going to be able to get out there this weekend. Because it's supposed to rain, and I don't know if I can get this thing done in time. And Thursday, I actually have to go for knee surgery. So I'm going to be out of commission for a little while. Yeah, wow, gasoline works really good to clean these. And you don't have to get every little last speck of grease out, but you want to get the majority of it out of there. So like if there's anything there you're doing by hand, or like inside that hub of the drum. Clean. And guess what I don't have? I don't have any cotter pins, so I'm reusing the old ones. I have a set, and for some reason I have them at work. They're supposed to be for home here. If I had compressed air, I could use compressed air to blow these out, but I don't even have compressed air, so. Alright, hopefully you can see everything that I'm doing here. Just cleaning them as best I can. And you can see there's still a little bit of old grease in there. But it's all coming out. Agitate as much as possible. change the point where you're holding it, because the roller bearings move around. And plus, I distorted the cage. Like I said, it's not a big deal. It's not going to hurt anything. I'm just going to put it to the side. Let it air dry. I'm going to clean another set of bearings real quick while I'm here. Or actually, it's just a bearing. For this side, because I already have it out. I'm not going to bother showing you that, but you get the general idea. So now, these bearings are pretty darn clean, so now I can pack them by hand. Let me take these off real quick. Okay. All right, let's try this again. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pack these bearings. Like I said before, I was packing them, but then I realized that, you know, just trying to pack the grease through was just not doing what I wanted it to do. So let me make sure I'm filming in the right spot. Yep. Come down a little bit. Okay. So all I'm going to do, try to make this as simple as possible. I'm going to take the grease from my grease gun. I'm going to fill the palm of my hand with it. There you go. Just like that. And now I'm going to pack the bearing by hand. And what I'm doing is I'm hitting the edge of the cage into the edge of the grease, and it'll push a little bit through as you're doing this. What you're doing is trying to do as little as possible. You're going to get some going to the inside. I don't know if you can see that, but that's okay, because hopefully it'll come out clean. Maybe a little residual, but residual of the old grease, that is. And there you see it starting to come through. See that? Those little three like teeth looking things? That's where the grease is packing through. Whereas before, it kept on coming out like nasty and like gooey, mixed in with the black old grease, which that black old grease, I'm pretty sure, was just a mixture of a bunch of greases over time. So I'm glad I'm doing this. It's putting the road trip on hold, unfortunately, but I'd rather be safe than sorry, because getting stuck on the road kind of stinks. Especially with something like if a bearing went bad and ruined the spindle, that would make for a really bad road trip. Now you can see the cage is a little distorted. It's not going to hurt nothing. It's absolutely fine. The cage is just there to hold the bearings in place while it's not assembled. Because once it's in place, the cage really has no effect on anything. What I'm doing is I keep taking the grease that's on the inside out. And like I said, when I'm done with that gasoline, I'm going to take it to work, because I just mix it in with the oil. You know, our waste oil tank is 500 gallons, so a gallon or two of gasoline is not going to do anything to it. Maybe thin it out a little bit. But we used to do that at the dealer because we actually used to burn the waste oil for the heaters. So now it's going all the way around. I've doubled back, so I'm happy with that. That's good, and that's how it's going to be. So now, what I always do, and unfortunately my hand's full of grease in here, for obvious reasons, what I will do is I will take the grease, I'll put some on the bearing race, Drop the bearing right in place. Now I can install the seal. Let me change gloves here because these things are all nasty. So hang on a minute, because then I can shut the camera off too. This is just a very, very messy job. Okay, the seal. Here's the new seal. And to put this in place, what we're going to do is use a block of wood and a hammer. I apologize for the dog barking next door. Nothing I can do about that. Let me back you up a little bit so you can see. So that is pretty much it. So what I'm going to do now, what I usually do is I'm going to take my grease gun and I'm going to actually pack grease all along the inside of the walls of where the bearings sit. Then I'm going to pack the front bearing, and this one's all ready to go together. And basically, I've got to repeat that for every other one. Now you may be asking yourself, why did I bother doing that since this thing has a grease fitting going through? The reason I did it is called old habits die hard. Something I've always done. I'll usually put grease on the inside there. This way there's a reserve of grease, basically. Whether it helps or not, I don't know. What I've been doing my whole life. So it's the only reason I'm really doing it. So let me pack that front bearing, and then we're going to get this drum in place, and I'm going to show you how to adjust the bearing. And then we can grease it up, and this one will be done. Alright, so with the other bearing packed, what we're going to do is we're going to take the drum. There you go. I'm actually going to take a touch of this grease. I'm going to wipe it on the seal here to help it go in place. Just a little bit. You don't want to go bananas. I try to hold it center as it's going in. There you go. Now we take the front bearing. You set the front bearing in place like that. Then you take the washer. Stick the washer in place. Then you take the knut. Screw the knut in place. Now I had adjusted these brakes up before, and it's just like an typical old school drum brake adjustment. But what we're going to do here is, oh, I wish that dog would stop barking. Now I'm going to tighten down on this and get the bearing set in place. There's a little drag from the shoes, and that's fine. It's just a little bit. I like to turn that and make sure the bearing turns, or the nut turns down a little bit, which it did the first time. So now what I'm going to do is, I can kind of feel where it stops. Like I'm not putting a lot of pressure on it, and it just kind of comes to a stop there. I usually will go a hair more, just like that. You want to have some kind of a preload on the bearing. You saw what I did there? Back up. I'll bring it back down, and it kind of stops. You can just naturally feel it. It comes to a stop right there. You can see what I'm doing, right? It comes to a stop right there. You know, obviously you can go more if you bury yourself into it. But it's that's a natural spot where it stops. Once it stops, go a hair more. Make sure everything's rotating fine. Then you're going to get your castellated washer. I'm going to try to get it into a spot where I can get the cotter pin back in place. Now here's the old cotter pin. I know I've heard a lot of you say I'm wrong with what I say about cotter pins. Don't care. Don't care what you got to say about that. That's the way I've been doing it. and it works perfectly fine for what I do. And I've never had an issue, never had a failure. Oh, that's right too. The cotter pins on these are offset. Can I get you down there to see this? Hang on. See how they're not centered in the hole itself? Like, in other words, cotter pins are usually run through the center, but because of the grease channel, it doesn't. So it's offset, and it's going to come out on the top there. See it? So now, sometimes you got to finagle this thing around a bit to get it to sit where you want it to sit. Sometimes you got to bend the tabs on these things too to make them sit right. And there was a bent tab on this. And of course I straightened it out, and I probably shouldn't have. Yeah, I'm going to have to bend that one tab there. Not a big deal. You get your cotter pin through. And just like that. So now I am really good with that. I'm happy with that. Now we're going to take our grease gun and let me move you back here. I'm good with that. You don't have to put so much grease in it that it starts pouring out the front. You don't need that much. That's fine what I just did. That gets all the excess in there, and it should be absolutely fine. Now, how do I know that that didn't pour out on the other side of the seal? Well, because the hole is on this side of the seal. The seal is towards the back side. So that's fine. I'm good with that. So I'm going to need every bit of both tubes of grease to do this job. Now, I bought new caps for this too. So let me go get the caps and we'll put that on. Now, from the movie Old Habits Die Hard, I pack grease inside there. I've always done it. Now, this rubber piece on the end is actually a plug. You can pop this plug out. I know you can't see it because I got grease in there. But you can pop this plug out so you can actually get to that grease fitting. Sometimes you'll have a bear of a time getting these on, like I am here. Sometimes what you got to do is you actually have to peen the very edge of this down so it rolls inward. So this way this edge rolls inward. Let me maybe do that a little bit with like a I don't know, maybe a hammer, or let me actually try setting this into the other drum just to get that edge to start in, because it'll shrink it slightly. Let me do that first, and then I should be able to get that on. What I wound up doing, and I forgot to show you, is I got a large socket that fit right over top of it, and I wound up smacking it in place. Just, you know, use that and a hammer, and just, and it popped right in place. So at least that way I was able to center it. One last thing I want to show you is, hold on, let me take my gloves off. So this way I know for the future, let's say when I go to get brakes for that, which I'm probably just going to do the backing plate and everything. There's different weight classes and different sizes. So how do I know what size brakes these are? Okay, well, you got to measure them. So here we got our old trusty tape measure. So as you see there, that's a 2 1/4. Okay, and that's a 10-inch drum. See that? See how I'm measuring that? That's a 10-inch drum, 2 1/4. Now, other thing too is, because I got to get a spare for this, and there's a couple of choices on spares. How do you know what the lug pattern is? Okay, well, this obviously a 5 by 4¼ 5 by 4¼ I know I'm moving a tape measure. So that's basically a 5 by 4¼ you can come over here, you go to, you skip one lug is what you do. So 5 by 4¼ okay. So this way I have reference for the future. All right, well that's it, just gotta do all the other ones. So it doesn't look like I'm gonna make that trip this weekend. Like I said, I'm having surgery too on Thursday, so that's gonna put me out of commission for a short period of time. It's supposed to be a fast recovery what I'm having done. So, all right guys, hope you had a great day. Hope you got something out of that video. If you did, hit that like button. If you could, please subscribe. All right, have a great day. Keep wrenching.